Tell him about the time we faced them.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Hi, welcome to the MCU D&T Plus podcast with myself, Andy Stead.
And me, Jason Cutter.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
Cool, excellent. So look, this is our first podcast. This is our intro podcast. We're going to explain a little bit about what we're about and what we're going to try and achieve over the course of this series. So just to give you a little bit of background, this podcast was started off the back of a Facebook group. We've got quite a great community going on now. I know that Jason's been doing some bits on Instagram. Am I right, Jason?
Yeah. We just started about a week ago, with the whole expansion stuff. We're carrying it over into Instagram. I'm getting that started. Haven't really announced that yet. It was kind of ground floor with it. But once we get this going, it's starting to take off. So absolutely.
Superb. So we've got a lot of things in the pipeline. What we're looking to be, and I know that you guys will agree with me, maybe come in and say a few words. We're looking to try and be just a little bit different. There's plenty of podcasts out there, plenty of videos on YouTube and other sources of people talking about Marvel movies, about MCU, about, all these other bits and pieces, the comics. And there's some great stuff out there. There really is. We don't want to try and compete with that. We would like to be in addition to this. Something that we're really interested in is building a dynamic between this podcast and our groups on social media, so our members can interact with us almost across the mediums. I don't know if either of you guys have got anything that you want to say about that in particular.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you hit the nail right on the head. The reason we were able to grow so quickly and so largely was because of how much we stood out. We're not just a meme page. We're not just a news page. We interact with each other, the entire community itself. We work together. We had plenty of, offshoot stuff, quizzes that we do live over Zoom and all this stuff where it's a community, for lack of words to say, but it's as simple as it gets. And we want to carry that over into this podcast. We want to interact with you all. We want to be a live interaction. We want a discussion, and we want to bring into theories into it. And we want to stay in our own lane with it, and keep what's unique to us. So
yeah, totally. And that's the D&T. So we've got the MCU bit, and we've got the D&T discussions and theories, and we've got the plus as well, because like we said, we don't mind the odd meme on our social media page.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And while we, predominantly will be talking about the MCU, we're not going to be adverse to talking about other Marvel projects, potentially even other comic-based projects that are going on as well. They influence things that are going on. So there's no reason why we can't bring those into the fold a little bit as well, especially when we are talking about those influences. Yeah.
No, of course. I mean, bottom line, end of the day, we're nerds, so that expands over a lot of stuff, movies, television, comics, just pop culture, everything. So we'll be touching on a little bit of everything. Obviously main focus is MCU and Marvel related, but Marvel itself touches into other areas of pop culture and all this. So, it's only natural for us.
So looking to just really quickly, just so that our listeners can just understand this dynamic, the three of us. So obviously, my name's Andy Stead. I'm based here just outside London in the UK. My kind of history of Marvel is, I guess, I grew up with the sort of Spider-Man and the X-Men cartoons in the 80s. I picked up comics here and there. I will say. Wouldn't say fell out of love with it, but kind of just moved away from it. I was almost too cool for school when I was in my teens. But then obviously, when the Raimi Spider-Man movies come back, it kind of re-sparked something that was there. And then with the MCU introduction of that, it was just brilliant. It's back for me. And I was almost proud to be a nerd then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody can relate to that feeling nowadays.
Yeah. Jarian, what's your sort of background in regards to Marvel and geek stuff?
Yeah, so mine's kind of similar to yours. I grew up watching the cartoons, watching the comics. Went through and then just kind of stepped with them for a while there. I did step away for a little bit, but just like you, when the Spider-Man movies came out, got back into it. I also I used to collect the pop figures, not so much anymore because I kind of got too much of them and so ran out of space. But I'm all about the Marvel Legos too, so I have tons of the Marvel Legos as well. In fact, the Daily Bugle just arrived today.
Ooh.
So yeah, my son's all excited to see that. But yeah, gone
Your
through
son.
Yeah, my son. But
Yeah, right.
But I've gone through comic books, the cartoons, the movies, pretty much all of it. So
Jason, what about yourself?
Me, basically from day one, I was comics, growing up with older cousins, brothers,
Yep.
and stealing their stuff. And myself being, I consider myself an artist. I've always loved drawing and stuff on that. So that was my original appeal into comics. I love the pictures. I love the stories told through visuals, and so I grew up with that, just before I could really read. I was just making up stories going off what the pictures were. That got me into the characters themselves. And eventually it branched off to just being more general pop culture stuff, a huge movie buff just in general. So then you can imagine once the MCU kicked off, I was like, it's the best of both worlds for me. Like, this is everything I've ever wanted. It's, my comic book world brought into my, live action movie experience. So it was huge.
Do you think, sorry, Jarian, 1 second. Do you think we've kind of been blessed with the age that we're all sort of a similar age here? Do you think we've kind of been blessed about when this has come about, because we've kind of known what happened before, i.e., the cartoons, the comics, for want of a better word, slightly inferior movies that were sort of about in the sort of 80s and earlier 90s, but we're also sort of, now we're young enough or old enough, should I say, to see these movies and appreciate where they've come from.
Absolutely.
You think that's
No, I think that's huge. Like you said, we were kind of smack dab in the middle where we remember, the corny Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno stuff where it's like, that looks like garbage, but it's all we got. But then also we had like the 90s X-Men where it's like, look what's possible. Just do it with real people. Yeah. So we were kind of on the fence there, and eventually, technology got better, and especially the MCU, they listened to fans and stuff, and we're still around to see the fruits of those labors. And it's been a process, a frustrating one for us long-term fans, but I think the way the MCU is, it's made it so worth it to be able to look back and remember what we came from. And it helps me at least be like grateful and, not so much of a nitpicky comic jerk about it, So
I think that's a really interesting point, because I know that both of you guys have got some sort of some really good level knowledge about the comics. I would probably put my comic knowledge, if we're talking on a 1 to 10, I would probably put it at about a 6, maybe creeping into a 7. I'd like to think that my MCU knowledge, similar to you, Jason, I'm a bit of a movie geek, and I've got quite an eye for things. So I'll be sort of, with the movies, I'm kind of quite, I know what's going on, but with the comics, not so much. So that's going to be really interesting. And I want to sort of touch base with you, Jarian, about the transition from comics into the movies and back again, and seeing that kind of those links going on.
Yeah, well, I think the one thing to remember is that the comics are kind of like I would say a roadmap for the movies, but they're not going to follow everything from the comics. And so, me growing up, reading the comics and then seeing things like Blade come on the big screen and that kind of stuff, it's not going to be exact one for one. So you mentioned earlier, you can't really nitpick at what happens in the movies, right? They're not going to follow everything like for like. They'll use them as kind of like a roadmap, but MCU is going to do what they need to do to fit things within their grand scheme of things, right? And I know we had a conversation the other day. I would love to see their big board of how they're fitting things in, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that we've seen this week, and I don't want to drive into that yet, but I'll keep that in mind as we go further in this conversation.
Yeah. Okay. And so well, let's drive into that now then. So let's get stuck in. So some of the things that have been going on this week. I mean, we started with the week with a new Eternals trailer. So that's something we might just sort of touch on now quickly. We don't want to spend a great deal of time on that because obviously
we got plenty of time to get into them.
We've got some months coming. We've got some months coming. But just quickly touching on that. Obviously the trailer didn't give away much. It was these sort of visuals, a couple of little hints about what was going on.
Yeah, story wise, they didn't reveal much. But I mean, Andy, you being a big movie buff in general, we kind of got a picture of what to expect wise, like you said, with the visuals. We know it's going to be out of the world, with the CGI that they have and just the way their costumes are made. I mean, it just screamed Jack Kirby, and that actually going back to what Jarian was saying about the, crossing over into the movies and comics and stuff. What I love about the MCU so much is they use the comics like as source material. They don't use it as a script.
Exactly.
They make it their own, and it's brilliant, and that's how to keep it fresh and keep it new while also making us old school readers happy. And I think best of both worlds.
I think without trying to get into a completely different conversation, Thor Ragnarok was a good example of how they can take elements from 4 or 5 different stories, put them together, and let's face it, on the whole, it was a great success.
Absolutely.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. So, but like we said, we've got plenty of time to talk about Eternals. So we want to touch on them. We'll touch on it right now because it's new news. It's Spider-Man No Way Home. And the rumors that are surrounding that, what's been going on the group this week, this week, the last 2 or 3 days, it has gone crazy. Yeah. So we've had rumors, that we've got, or not. So first of all, it's not even a rumor. Aaron Taylor Johnson cast as Kraven.
Yep.
Yeah, in a solo movie. We know we've got 2 weeks ago we had the Let There Be Carnage trailer. We know we've got Jared Leto in Morbius coming up. Yeah. We now are hearing rumors that
the Sinister Six.
Sinister Six, Willem Dafoe. We're hearing Rhino rumors. We're hearing all these different things.
And then actually, I think Andy, you had posted it in the group. It got a great conversation going about how the heads over at Sony were talking about the integration between Spider-Man, Tom Holland, Spider-Man into their Sony verse of Spider-Man characters and one-offs and stuff. So that is a lot going on with that. It's interesting.
I think Jarian's been popping quite a bit of stuff on the page recently. So I want to come to him in a second about this. But it seems to me, I mean, there obviously has been conflict. I mean, we know nothing. We're minnows. we're minnows. We're minnows in this world.
A chain of command.
Yeah, that we're like here somewhere, down here. But there seems to me like there's been some conflict, obviously, between Sony and Marvel in the past. And then it seems like in the last maybe 6 months or so, there seems to be some sort of coming together. They've been talking. There was the news a little while ago, wasn't there, about the Sony Marvel movies becoming available on Disney Plus. So there's that kind of, it seems like there's a little bit more of an arrangement going on. Jarian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely does seem like there's more of a two-way street going on there, to where we're going to see that crossover. We're going to see them work more together. I'm kind of excited for the announcements, and I know people are like, this movie's going to be terrible. Some of the comments I've seen, they're trying to figure out what's going on, but I think they're actually trying to find a working relationship that benefits them both. And I'm kind of excited to see that they're bringing back the old villains in this next movie that's been rumored, because instead of having to redo those stories, having to spend time establishing those characters, they're already established. We can get right into it and see what's going on with Tom Holland, and with him having Peter Parker and being revealed as Spider-Man and Far From Home, and get right into the action.
I mean, they kind of did that with Spider-Man in the MCU anyway, didn't they? They kind of forewent the whole origin of Spider-Man, of him.
And that's the MCU listening to their fans anyways, because I mean, that's what we've been saying since the Amazing Spider-Man or Sony, but it's like, we don't need the Ben Parker, dying again and all that. We know it's Spider-Man, just put him in there. you know, and then you can work it out throughout there. And it's
it's something I've been
What just happened?
Felix characters potentially coming over, or a few of them at least, but not necessarily having that history from the Netflix shows, but them coming
already
into the
existing,
MCU. And I think that's nice. That's because I think sometimes if they keep having to draw back and do an origin story about characters that we've seen origin stories for, and it gets patronizing, doesn't it? You know, you're kind of like, oh, I've seen this. I mean, it's great that I'm seeing it again in this universe, but can we move on, you know, especially with such established characters, you know, Spider-Man, how many times do we need to see an origin? So yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think we could talk all day about Spider-Man at the moment. And
of course,
I think what we need to do is, like with everybody else, is just take a step back, wait for this next trailer to come out. And then I think we'll have a little bit more of an understanding about where they're going to go with it.
We'll just wait for the trailer in general and to see what's going to happen, right? Like I said, I'm not going to judge anything or
no, of course,
or sandbag it until I actually see a trailer, you know, because the way they do it could fit perfectly. The way they do it could, not fit perfectly, but, MCU so far gets benefit of the doubt. And so I'm going to wait and see.
Yeah.
No, of course.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all speculation until it's physically there. I mean, it's just like the way we handle the group with, people bringing in news and stuff. If it's not from Marvel's mouth, take it with a grain of salt, obviously. But
we've spoken
I will
about
say
that.
one thing with the whole Sony thing, building their own stuff with the villains and talking about integrating Spider-Man. One thing I am skeptical of a little bit is it seems to me that they're trying to build without MCU. They're just going to take Tom Holland and just keep that one connection and then just go do their own thing. I'd like to see more of a complete integration where all the characters, all the stories are together,
They've got a lot of characters, haven't they, as well? I mean,
absolutely.
Did I
Spider-Man
see
day one, his characters, his rogues gallery is humongous. So
yeah. They've got a lot of characters. Just winding back to just something you said about the news, Jason, about how we kind of stand on a group, and I think this would be good information for people that are new to us and our group listening to this podcast. And I think I've said it to you guys before, and I think I have put it on the group. But the way that we kind of approach our statements or our talk, our discussions. And I quite like to use the acronym FOG. So we've got the fact and an opinion and a guess. And I think there's different levels. If something's fact, it's backed by cold, hard evidence. We've got word from the horse's mouth that this is happening. We've got opinions, which, as we all know, we can all have opinions. Whether you agree with somebody else's opinions or not, as
long as it's known it's an opinion.
Of course.
You're trying to pass it off as a fact, then
there's a problem.
And that's what we're talking about. And then even worse than that is if it's just a guess. It's not even based. It's not even based on an opinion. It's just a random guess. But I think if we can, we will do this now in our podcast, and I hope that people that are members of our page can see that when we try and sort of formulate a discussion, we are using that as a basis for how we approach a discussion. I think that's really important that everybody's kind of on that same page.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think Andy, you got that covered. But I
was a second behind, but I got what you're saying. I like it. I
don't know. Graham might take me off of admin for dropping that little joke.
I do like that. If anybody listening or watching doesn't quite understand where Jason's little in joke come from, I'm not going to say anything on here. You'll find out. You'll work it out. You'll work it out. Yeah, you'll get it. So, okay, let's move on because we've got two subjects that we really do want to cover today and just get a little bit into. We've still got a little bit to come, but we've got two subjects. We've got Black Widow and we've got Loki. So I think with Black Widow being held back for so long, I think let's attack that first. So let's have a little chat about what we're expecting from Black Widow. Personally, I'm really excited to see more Natasha. I think she's a really cool character. I think she had a great development over the 13 years. And I'm hoping it's not the last we see of her, but I think it probably will be. And I'm hoping that she can, this movie will kind of just be a really nice sort of swan song for her. And we can move on from here. Jarian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this might probably is our last movie. I think we might see passing of the Black Widow mantle in this movie. I'm glad they're doing her a solo film because she definitely deserves it. I want to see her backstory. I want to see more of the Red Room. I want to see her family from there as well. So I think we're going to see some good character development from this movie going forward. I'm a huge Taskmaster fan. You guys know that. And I'm just hoping, look my background. I just hope that Taskmaster isn't a one and done villain. That last trailer though, it kind of gives me Winter Soldier type vibes with Taskmaster a little bit when you see that one scene of him saying, "I need to do this one more time," type of thing to Taskmaster. So I think it's going to be a really interesting film. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad that it's finally coming because I've been so excited to see this.
And I think just before when Jason, I'll come to you one second, and we won't talk about it today, but something that I think we do need to touch on at some point is the Thunderbolts.
Yes.
That was one of the things I was about to bring up. Yeah,
big setup there going on.
Yeah, I think there is, and I think we could get lost in that conversation right now.
Oh,
so I think if we can keep it about Black Widow, we will come back to Thunderbolts in a few weeks' time, maybe even after we've seen Black Widow, and it might give us a little bit more of an indication of whether that's actually going to happen or not. But I think if we can just keep it to Black Widow for a minute, because I was almost coming and went, let's talk about Thunderbolts, but actually,
that's why I didn't mention it. That's why I didn't mention it.
Yeah. So I really like Florence Pugh, is it the actor that's going to play or hopefully going to play the new Black Widow.
Well, that's the rumor is that she's going to take the mantle and she'll fill that role of spy, intel type of character.
I haven't seen her in much. I saw it in Fighting with My Family. I don't know if you've seen that, the wrestling one.
I've seen that one.
Fantastic. What a brilliant actress she is. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her in that.
She's gotten huge praise from test audiences for Black Widow. They said they absolutely loved her in that, in that type of role. So it could be big.
And I think that's really important as well. I mean, we've spoken about, again, I don't want to get into the sort of Captain Marvel with you like Brie Larson or not like Brie Larson discussion at the moment. But I mean, I think there is surrounding that discussion, there is this kind of disconnect maybe between fans and Brie Larson as an actress and her portrayal of Carol Danvers. So hopefully with Florence Pugh and the Black Widow role, hopefully that's not, we're not going to, have that in the background. That's not going to be a conversation.
I don't
exactly. It was the same thing with the U.S. agent stuff. It's you got to find that line. They're people, they're actors. They're playing a character. You got to appreciate the character for what it is and who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, we had a comment on the group the other day. Who was it? Mark, and he said he hated somebody. Who was it he hated? He hated the guy that's just been signed up to play in Secret Invasion. I'm sure it was him. The guy, Shooter McGavin from and Mark said, I hate him so much. But
I like Mark. I hate Mark.
No, wait. No, he hated him. But he didn't hate the actor. He hated the character that the actor played. And then he come back with, I hate this guy. Hence why I love him so much.
Yeah.
Because he makes me hate him.
Exactly. And that's their job.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be bad people. You're not supposed to like the bad guy,
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So, but if you can get that out of an actor, if an actor can get that out of you, you hate somebody. I mean, wow.
You got to respect it.
Yep. Yeah, you have, because you're sitting there going, this isn't a real person.
Exactly.
So they're bringing that to the fray.
And that's what I love about the MCU is how immersive they are. And I mean, when they're choosing actors and actresses, it's such quality that they pick consistently picking these type of actors that can pull this out of us, that we forget that these are shows. We forget these are, just fake comic book stories, we get immersed in it.
No, we do. So just thinking about just last little few moments on Black Widow, the time frame. So we know it's set between Civil War and Infinity War. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just as a general question, really, to both of you, like not necessarily within this movie, but how do you feel about going backwards to go forwards in regards to going backwards in time and seeing movies that are set before where we currently are, which is 2023, isn't it? I think we're in the MCU. We're in 2023, I think.
Yeah,
But it's still developing the story.
That I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I forget exactly what made me stem off of it. It was something Jarian said earlier, but it made me want to talk about this type of thing where the MCU opening up the multiverse was the smartest thing they can do, because they have safety netted themselves into never being written into a corner. Yep. They can go back, they can go forth, they can go side to fucking side. Yep. You know, they can do the what ifs. You know, there's possibilities are open for anything and everything, and it makes sense now. You know, so I think this is brilliant because it's different, it's new, it's not the same old, oh well, who's the next bad guy? It's filling in gaps, you know, and that's what I love. And I actually hope they, like how Andy was saying, it'll kind of be, you know, a nice swan song for Natasha. I actually hope it's not. I hope they leave some things open and maybe do a Disney Plus show where they fill in some of her story, or, you know,
we need to know what happened in Budapest.
Yep. Well, exactly. Yes,
exactly. That has to be done in the movie. That has to be shown. There has to be a flashback to that.
There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that. Yeah.
We might get something later on in the year with Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There might be maybe some mention of that. But
I can see two things happening though with Black Widow, and this is just me completely, just a guess by Jarian. I can see the opening sequence be some kind of flashback with her and Clint in the opening sequence, like trying to show either how they came together, Budapest, something. There's going to be some kind of flashback with her and Clint. And then my other one is I could see one of the end closing credit scenes showing Clint at her supposed gravesite with his kids, especially since he has one named after her.
Wow. So now we're talking about post-credit scenes, obviously traditionally kind of set up the next movie or potentially the next but one movie
project
now. Next one project, well, until sort of this year. So now we're talking about movies, the post-credit scene in movies touching on the Disney Plus shows.
That's exactly, and that's what I mean, you know, with them opening up the multiverse and going all these different routes, something like that they could spin it around and then have a Disney Plus show showing the history of her and, you know, Hawkeye, whatever. And wasn't actually I don't know, don't quote me on it, but was the rumor that Stark was making some type of cameo in Black Widow?
I thought so. I thought I read that somewhere.
I don't remember how or where or when or why, but I remember hearing something about that. So, I mean, it could be her, you know, more going into detail on her introduction with, you know, Fury and Stark and getting involved with that. Is that it's endless alleys they can go down, you know?
So talking about time and talking about going backwards to go forwards, I think that leads us, that's a great little intro into what we wanted to
absolutely get them in here.
And our next big project, our thing that we're all looking forward to as MCU fans, week and a half, we've got Loki coming out on June 9th on a Wednesday, which is weird on a Wednesday. I mean, I don't know why they did that, but who cares? It's coming 3 days earlier than what we expected.
Loki's weird.
Yeah.
Does anything about Loki make sense? You know?
And it's a Jack timeline too. So when's that make sense?
Yeah, do you know what would be crazy is if because it is a direct timeline, what if they went, okay, first one's out on June 9th, Wednesday, June 9th, the next one's going to be out on a Thursday, and then the next one's going to be out on a
They keep changing it.
Talk about making it interactive.
Yeah.
You know?
We'd all be going crazy, wouldn't we? So look, I mean, I love Loki. I love the trailer. Again, Jason, so you were saying about being a movie fan. I myself, I've actually got an art degree, believe it or not. But I love visuals. I love the visuals. And the trailer for Loki, the second trailer. So we had the original one, however many months ago that was. We had the one that came out about a month ago, was it? I think, and it was just incredible. Just looked incredible. I'm really looking forward to the visuals. Other than that, my personal knowledge of Loki and this kind of the TVA and that kind of thing is quite limited. So I'd be really keen to hear both of your opinions on what that show, how we can link that show to the source material, how they're going to show that in the show, and then how it could affect what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to set up a lot, and it's basically running with the idea, like how I had mentioned earlier with opening up the multiverse and stuff. They're basically safety netting themselves where they can just do whatever they want and have a reason for doing it. I mean, the TVA, I'm actually, even myself, I'm not 100% familiar with them in comics, believe it or not. And I think they're fairly new in terms of actually being cared about in the comics. I know they've been around for a little while, but they were never really brought into the foreground until maybe 5 years or so ago. So, which my own personal theory is the reason that was because they knew they eventually wanted to bring it into the MCU. And I've seen a lot of connection with things like that, where you see it happening in the comics all of a sudden. Few years down the line, it winds up in the MCU.
Yep.
Yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but Fantastic Four almost got completely cancelled about 10 years ago.
No, they were cancelled.
It was just done, wasn't it? And then they
killed them
back.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
did. But they're back. I mean, they're not back for. It's not a coincidence why they're back.
No, exactly.
We know why
money
they're
talks,
back.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Jarian, have you got any sort of any thoughts on what we're expecting to see in Loki?
I honestly don't know what to expect with Loki, because with Loki, you never know what to expect. So I think this show is going to be a fun adventure in some sorts. I'm going to be more interested to see how it ties into everything going forward and what it sets up. I also wonder if we're going to hear anything from the Ancient One at all, because she's the one that kind of first talked about the branch timelines in Endgame. So with Loki basically creating a branch timeline and kind of being out of time now with the way he disappeared in Endgame with a Tesseract, I wonder how all that's going to come together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting seeing how they kind of make some sort of sense. Because I think it could be very, very confusing to your average fan as to what's going on. So I think they've got to try and, while being weird, but also still being able to
simplify it a little.
Yeah, and have it be part of the story as well, and not just this kind of weird thing that's going on over here that nobody really cares about.
Well, the head writer there said that it was going to have huge ramifications throughout the entire MCU. I forget exactly. I mean, don't quote me on this. I don't have it up in front of me. I posted it on Instagram, the link to, the article and stuff. But again, it's just, word of mouth type of stuff. So whatever, but still, I think it's curious to bring up because it should, I mean, this is messing with the entire timeline. It's Loki. One thing, Jarian, you had brought up where I found interesting the way you worded it was that Loki creating the own timeline.
Yep.
Do you think they're going to go that way, where he's creating a whole new one? Or do you think because they pulled him out of it and brought him into the TVA that, they're just working on already existing ones?
I think we'll see both.
I'd like that.
I think
that would be awesome.
I think we see both. And, Andy mentioned something interesting about the casual fan might get confused or lost. But Loki, Tom Hiddleston is kind of the perfect casting for Loki, and there's a huge following to him. Just casual fans that are a huge fan of his. So even if it is not fully understandable by the casual fans, they're still going to watch it. They're still going to follow it. There's no way Loki's not going to be a hit.
Absolutely.
Maybe for the real casual fan, it's probably good that it might be completely separate in a way from the main MCU, because it's almost like they don't have to worry about following anything else. They can just watch this one show.
Yep.
Well, that's what's amazing about the MCU is the way they do that. They include everybody. It's something for everyone.
So that's something that I have sort of noticed over the last maybe year or so, I guess, with all the Disney Plus projects coming in as well now, is that there was part of me for the last sort of 10, 13 years that felt like you kind of had to watch every movie. Otherwise, you kind of didn't really understand what was happening. You could take a movie here and there and watch it. When now it seems like there's so much going on that it's going to be very difficult to actually keep up. You're going to have to be a real true fan. I mean, what have we got? We've got 3 more No, 4 more TV. So Disney Plus shows coming out this year.
Yeah.
And we've got 4 movies coming out this year. We've got 8 projects coming out this year. We've already had 2 projects coming out this year. That's 10 projects in 1 year. You know, I mean, granted, for the first part of this year, we've not really had a great deal to do, and you know, we've been stuck indoors. But as things start to open up now, and people are getting out and about a little bit more, you're going to have to really find time to sit and watch this stuff and take it
follow.
all in.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so my point is that you might be able to
of
take
the
a little
MCU.
bit.
Yeah, that's the brilliance of the MCU, is the way they found a balance to, you know, pander and appease us, you know, comic and even the movie style fans who love the continuity and love the connections, but also for the casual fan who just, hey, look at these cool graphics, look at this cool fight scene. They can sit and watch it as well and still be able to follow along. And it's amazing. I've been racking my brain for, you know, 10 years now. Like, how the hell did you guys do it? It's that the MCU way or whatever the hell you want to call it, you know, but they've found how to do it. And it's brilliant.
Yeah,
I think
they've always, go ahead.
No, go on, Jarian.
No, I'll say, yeah, they've really done well over the years. And like I said earlier, you know, they get the benefit of the doubt with any of these projects going so far. That's why I'm just like, let's wait and see what happens with some of these newer ones where people are like, I don't know, you know, because everyone's kind of, I've seen a lot of mixed opinions about Spider-Man. No Way Home.
I'm one of them. Yeah, I was one of them at least. You know?
Yeah, and me, I'm just like, you know what, let's just sit back and kind of do it. I'm like, the MCU has done before. They've changed actors. Those new actors worked out the way they've done things. So, like I said, I trust what they're doing. They've tied everything together so far. And, you know, like I said, I'm looking forward to what's coming.
Yeah, they're great with adapting.
Yep,
you know,
exactly.
say if Sony screws something up and, you know, changes plans on whatever, they're great with, you know, rolling with it. You know, they roll with the punches brilliantly.
Yeah,
they can multiverse it and move on.
Exactly. You know, that's another timeline. Yeah, and that's what I loved about the comics too. Is like, you know, Andy, how you said, you know, you stopped reading for a little while. You know, like same with me, same with all of us, really. But you can always just jump back in because, all right, hey, we're starting over again. Here's a new timeline, or hey, here's a new story.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I've just picked up the original Captain Marvel stuff, like with Marvel, and I'm just really enjoying that. But you know, I'll skip back and forwards. I mean, I was reading the Thanos Imperative, which is what actually got me to then go and pick up, you know, without giving too much away, which is what got me to go and pick up the original Marvel stuff. So, you know, I think that kind of that ability to be able to flick back and forwards in the comics will hopefully now be translated into the movies, and you can just flick back and forward in the movies and watch whatever you want, you know, whenever you want to watch it.
Like a little like side note here, I wanted to bring up, I was in my head when you were doing like the intro and, you know, explaining yourself and your history. And I remember when I first met you, when we were just talking in the group before, you know, we were in the, you know, mod chats, this and that. And you were saying how you're a movie buff. I knew right away that you were going to be more, you know, graphic novel stylized, you know, like you love the big events, like how you're saying the Marvel one that you were showing us the other day, like that's right up your alley. You love the big stories, those, you know, and then now just finding out that, you know, you got the Archie Green stuff, it all makes sense. That's right up your alley, you know.
Right, look, guys, I think we had a really good conversation for our first episode. I think we've laid the groundwork for the guys that are going to be listening to us, for the guys that are on the group that have kind of got to know us over the last sort of 2 or 3 months, as to what they can expect from our podcasts going forward. You know, we're not going to sit here and pick apart every single little tiny aspect of every single little project that's going on.
We can do that in the group.
We can do that in a group. But you know, we're more about just like we said, we want to try and bring these conversations and make them interactive between here and the pages. So look, guys, if you're listening out there, get onto our Facebook group, MCU Discussions and Theories. Jason, what's the Instagram
the Facebook page is MCU DNT plus. The Instagram one is MCU_DT.
Cool, good stuff. Get on now. Our group is growing. It's growing fast. We're trying to keep things cool. Yeah, we're trying to keep things cool. We're keeping
Trying.
We're trying, man. We're trying. It's hard, but we're trying. And I think we're doing a good job. And hopefully get on there, get some discussions going, get some theories in. And we will be back, I think, in a couple of weeks with another episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
And we will have an episode of Loki to talk about, where we might have some more information about what's going to be happening there. We might even be treated in that time. I doubt it, but we might even be treated to a No Way Home trailer as well, where we can elaborate on that. Yeah, we've got Eternals to break into as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one, and also too, I think it'd be, with us diving into some of the theories that, the fans and stuff and the members have from the group, we've got a lot to cover. And so this is going to be fun. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be some great conversations.
It is good. So guys listening, you know where to find us. Thank you from me. Thank you from these guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. We'll catch you on the next episode.
It's on the flip.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced